Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention again, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start our wedding breakfast today, we're going to do some speeches. And it gives me great pleasure to invite Dave, father of the bride, to say a few words.
A few words being the operative thing. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this fantastic location on such a glorious day. I'm going to keep saying it's glorious. I'm sure the sun's going to come out as the afternoon goes on. I'm sure you'll agree, Abby and Liam have made a wonderful choice of venue, and they fell in love with Sandhole as soon as they visited back in 2022. Time certainly has flown to be here today, this afternoon. For those who don't know me, I'm Dave, I'm Abby's dad. My job today, at least according to Google, is to welcome all our guests and thank you for all coming, especially those that have travelled a big distance to get here this afternoon. So that bit's done. Share heartfelt anecdotes about the bride. I'll come to that in a moment. Talk about Liam. I'll come to that in a moment. And finally, offer words of wisdom. And this is probably going to be the hardest part, because Abby's never taken any notice of any advice I've given her over the last 27 years. So let's turn to Abby. She obviously looks absolutely beautiful today, but for me that's not always been the case. Let me explain. For probably the last 17 years or so, most of my spare time was spent with Abby watching her play football. Generally she was in football kit, football shirts, tracksuits, shorts, and generally covered in mud from head to toe. She started a football career very early. We first noticed her at a party with Emma, sat over there, who had a birthday party many, many years ago. Abby was probably aged about 5, I'm thinking. She ran around kicking everybody, upsetting all the older children, causing mayhem. Sadly, nothing really changed over the next 17 years of her playing football. She decided that was the style of play and worked for her. And it certainly did, and Abby and I had a great laugh together over all those years and time watching her play football. We spent many hours covering thousands of miles, arguing about tactics, how she played, how bad the ref was, how we should have won, the ref robbed us, etc. Sandy used to hate our Sunday evening meals when these debates got even more heated. So Sandy was certainly extremely happy when Abby decided it was finally time to retire and concentrate on organising her wedding. And I'm sure you will all agree she's done an absolutely fantastic job of that today. However, one thing I've learned watching Abby grow up and play football over all these last few years, that she gives 100% of everything that she does. And again, I'm sure you'll all agree, people who know her Abby, who are here today, that you've seen that yourselves, and that is something that makes her very, very special. Looking back over the years, one of the many surprising things about Abby was she passed a driving test first time. She'd been adamant that for her 17th birthday, she definitely didn't want driving lessons. And like Hannah, who just was desperate to drive and loved cars straight away, partying was more of Abby's thing. However, she did pass a test first time, and I falsely expected she would jump at every opportunity to drive the car on some of the very, very long away football trips we've done over the years. However, wake me up when we get there, and wake me up when we get home, was generally Abby's standard response. The highlight of her driving career so far was when she turned out to drive a car into our garage door one day and then promptly blame me for parking the car too close to the garage in the first place. In terms of her work, many of you may know that she started work at Weaver Vale Housing and when she left college. Again, it was a big surprise because Abby turned out to be quite a bit of an interior designer for the lovely house that her and Liam now have. The reason it was such a surprise was that when she started working at Weaver Vale, she had no idea between a terrace, a detached, a Victorian. She was completely at odds with anything to do with the house. But between her and Liam, they've made a lovely home together. Despite all of this, Sandy and I are immensely proud of how Abby has become the beautiful young woman she is today. Now let's turn to Liam. He first came into our lives via Sky Sports. I was watching the Manchester City Spurs game one Saturday lunchtime, when after a succession of City corners, I noticed Abby sat next to this guy in the stand. My immediate reaction was, thank God it wasn't Old Trafford, and that she was with a United fan. It was reassuring at least to know that City was a City fan, or at least he tells us he is sometimes. Another landmark in Abby and Liam's relationship was COVID. This gave everyone challenges, but Liam embraced it wholeheartedly, seeing it as a great opportunity to spend all day on his PlayStation or the computer. As the lockdown progressed, a couple of highlights spring to mind. One of when Liam almost fainted having cycled round to our house to see Abby. The exercise was obviously too much for him, even though it was only about half a mile down the end of the road. Secondly, being discreet was not one of his strong points either. And during one of the street party times during COVID that happened at that time, when people were still meant to be not mixing, he appeared from our back garden on his bike again in front of all the neighbours to cycle home. After that, Abby moved in with Bill and Diane to be with Liam and avoid any further embarrassment with the neighbours. Against all odds, they decided to buy a house together during COVID, which just illustrated how determined they were to be together. Liam's plan to get engaged didn't go smoothly, as he had hoped. He called round one Friday evening to tell Sandy and myself about his plans. However, despite him knocking several times on the back door, Sandy and I were engrossed in one of the many Netflix series we were watching at the time, and we never heard him. He had to come round the following evening when we finally let him in. We were obviously over the moon when he told us his plans. His plan for the actual engagement itself didn't go smoothly either. He was meant to confirm with Diane that Abby had actually said yes. However, Liam somehow or other forgot to text, so we were all waiting anxiously in the restaurant to find out if Abby had actually said yes. But of course she had, and that's why we're all here today. So all that remains for me to do now is to welcome Liam into our family and say we're immensely proud of both of them and what they have achieved so far. So if you'd like to raise your glasses and toast Abby and Liam.
Thank you, Dave. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have Liam, our groom.
Quite hard to follow that, wasn't it? Right, so, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming to make mine and Debbie's day so special. Let's get the soppy ones out of the way, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to raise a glass to my new beautiful wife, Abby Sharkey. Oh, God. Yeah. A few things not many of you know about me and Abby. She was chasing me all throughout school life. It's just something about braces. It just wasn't for me. Did say the soppy ones are out the way. After leaving school, nothing had changed. She was still on the chase. I finally gave in to her persistence, as things were going well for about 2 months. Then things came to a sudden end. Apparently, I spent too much time on games. No idea. Years passed, the braces came off. For both of us, I may say. Things started to rekindle. Turns out, what would have been seen as a girl's worst first date, a trip to the Etihad, was all it took to get to where we are today. But I've still not managed to get you in a City shirt. I do have the pleasure of now calling you a Sharky. To the parents. Firstly, a huge thank you to both sets of parents. Sandy, Dave, you've raised a beautiful, kind-hearted daughter. Diane and Bill, God knows what you two were doing, it says here. Only joking. You gave me everything and more. I wouldn't have it any other way. So from the lads in the room, I'd like to give a few gifts to the parents here today. Where are you going? Now you can go. George? Yeah, all at the same time.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
That's from me as well.
All right. Thank you, Liam. Thank you, love. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. You're welcome.
No problem. The grandparents, Nanny, Grandad, Granny, and my Nana Sharky. I'm sure Abby would agree how grateful we both are, to have you growing up as grandparents. Also, I'd like to raise a glass to the grandparents that can't be here with us today. For 29 years of my life, there's been a line dividing my family. This line, in 2024, was Arsenal. But a wise man once told me, there's a little bit of blue in everybody.
Yes.
In everybody's... You ain't got a clue. The bridesmaids. It wouldn't be right if I didn't start off by saying how beautiful you all look today. I'd like to say a thank you for being such a big part of Abby's day and being so good friends to her for over the years. From the stories I've heard and the pictures I've seen, it all looked like you worked so hard to create the perfect hen do's for her. Hannah. The best job in the house today, big part of Abby's day. All you have to do is wear what Abby tells you and drink to your heart's content. No speeches, no stress for you. But truthfully, Abby couldn't have done any of this leading up to today without you. Finally, a little thank you to Nikki and George for doing the hard part and going first. You gave us a great template to copy and paste. Jokes aside, you have been an enormous amount of help with everything wedding related. You pair have been a godsend. Now then, boys. The best men, Joe and Brad, don't they scrub up well? It's almost like I dressed you both. No, on a serious note, I can't make too many jokes about these. God knows what they're going to come out with next. Instead, I'd like to thank them both for being my best mates my entire life. As much as our mums tried to split us up in school, they couldn't keep us apart. We've had some good holidays together, all of us lads, but I'm sure you'll hear more details about them soon as well. My own little personal thank you to Ben Smith. There he is. For helping me get slim enough to actually fit in this suit today. And lastly, I'd like to thank Top Table in advance for what's to come, and Tandhole for a beautiful venue that they have here. Oh, and lads, remember, your days will come.
Cheers. I'll swing it for them.
Don't be doing that.
Afternoon, everyone.
Straight away, yeah.
So I like to hear. I'd like to thank Sharky for getting up and doing his speech. I know it's hard, and I know it'd be an hard one to follow. I was right, I could hardly follow a word of it.
Anyway, for those who don't know us, I'm Joe and this is Brad. Brad has given me some words of advice to make this easier. He said, if I get nervous, I should just picture everyone naked.
Isn't that right, Diane?
We've been lucky enough to be selected to be Sharky's best man for today. This is our best effort before we return back to our natural habitat, the bar. This is our first best man speech for either of us. We've worked out the perfect number of pints to drink before this speech, which is 4. So we doubled it, and then we doubled it again.
Speech is not really our strong point, but Joe keeps telling me speech are quite like a nudist beach. I suppose he's right. It's only hard for the first couple of minutes.
Me and Sharky have been mates from back in the day, when it was cool to slap as much wet lock gel into your hair and spike nothing but the fringe up. I can't begin to tell you how many running races we've had to see who takes the crown. If it wasn't running, we've seen who's the best at football. If Sharky wasn't scoring, he was on the sidelines crying because his dad wouldn't put him on.
Me and Shark have been good mates for as long as I can remember. All the way back to primary school, like Shark said, when we got constantly split up for being in trouble. He's always been a bad influence on me. I guess everyone's now expecting a few stories about high school and everything he got up to in lessons and all that jazz. Unfortunately, I haven't really got any. He was in B band with the less fortunate Blessing.
Me and Shark have had plenty of memories, daft ideas and adventures since then. Holidays abroad have always been eventful: Marbella, Vegas, Ibiza and Turkey, the list goes on. One final connection that shows me and Shark will be literally side by side forever is that one of the guests here has our name tattooed on either cheek. And once Keeney's had a few more Guinness, I'm sure I'd be happy to show you all.
I think it's safe to say we've spent a fair share of time together on nights out, day sessions and parties, which has nearly always resulted in him spewing up, telling me how he's never drinking again. We all know that was a lie. It was only last week we walked down the local. Took us 5 minutes to get there, 25 back. Difference is staggering.
Sharky has always been to fashion, thinking he was a trendsetter, and as most of you have seen, he has a very impressive trainer collection. But it's not always been the way. He somehow thought if Joey Essex could pull off Ugg boots, then he could too. This didn't exactly go to plan on a Friday night in the White Bear. After a few comments, he sold them the next day.
As you can all imagine, the Ugg boot trend never set off with the rest of the lads. Never was. It was just never going to happen, was it? But being the good mates we are, we decided to get him a pair for his stag do. We thought they really complimented the wetsuit, swim cap and goggles. Can't say everyone in the airport took too kindly to it though. I think it might have been the socks he was stuffing down the wetsuit.
As we can all agree, Sharky has never been the most domesticated. If it wasn't for his mum cooking for him, it was cereal or soup, and that was a push.
So I think we can all agree it's a huge hats off to Abby for slightly domesticating him. That leads me nicely on to the beautiful bride. For those of you who were at the engagement party, I'm sure you all remember the lovely rendition of Swan Lake that Abby gave everyone on the way out. For those of you that missed it, don't worry. I'm sure the Bambi legs will be back out tonight. We can't finish this without saying how stunning the bride and bridesmaids look, and how the groomsmen look a little bit better than usual. Suits do the world of good, lads. Just.
I'm sure you all agree. I think me and Brad have sweated enough up here. So let's get this wrapped up and let's get us back to the bar.
Cheers, Mosh. Before we get there, we know it means a lot to Shark and Ab for everyone being here. So thank you all for coming and making this such a special day and having to listen to us pair waffle on. Obviously, we can't finish without a toast.
So without further ado, can we all please join us in raising the glass to the new Mr. and Mrs. Sharky. No one's even going to know it's walking somewhere.
See some birds.